Hey everyone, it's about that time of the month again where I wanted to do another in-depth video on sensorimotor OCD, also known as somatic OCD, also known as hyperawareness OCD, but the titles don't really matter. It just gives you an insight into where your fear patterns are. My name is Nick. If you haven't seen my videos before, I suffered tremendously with sensorimotor and many other hyperawarenesses. I've had saliva, swallowing, breathing, heartbeat, thumbs, belt line, physical anxiety symptom hyperawareness, I had stomach hyperawareness for years. Years and years. I didn't even look out into the world. It was me, the thoughts of my stomach, diarrhea, gas, bloating, what's going to mess my stomach up, and then the rest of the world. Then I had all the big five, right? The blinking, breathing, swallowing, saliva, heartbeat. Blinking, saliva, and swallowing just affected me a little bit more. It doesn't really matter why. You can go down that route. I was in a mental hospital. I wanted to take my own life for a long time. I had the police called to my house numerous times. Backup had to come twice because I was so erratic and was so suicidal for so long. And now I am where I am today. I've been recovered from sensorimotor for years. Has no effect on my life, nothing whatsoever. And I can show you and teach you how to get here. It's hard to do it in the calls. One-on-one coaching and webinars are more specific because it is very detailed. There's not a lot of compulsive rituals per se. There are some, a lot more avoidance behaviors, researching, Googling, trying to escape the sensations, which then instill that fear pattern even more. Exposures matter this much for these hyperawarenesses. They have a place in time, very, very little. It's not like contamination OCD. So you see people talk about ERP being the gold standard, nothing further than the truth. Anyone that's gone through sensorimotor OCD, I mean, it's hard to imagine what it's like unless you're doing this all day. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like having a shutter closing on your eyes constantly. It's like, no, they don't need to understand, but I've had friends be like, well, what's it like, right? Well, imagine this all day, every day when you're talking to me. Because that's how aware you are of your blinking. Exposures are not going to work because you're already blinking all day. If you're not blinking, something's up. If you're not breathing, you're dead. If your heart's not beating, you're also dead. If you're not salivating and swallowing saliva, you're also dead. So you're going to do these behaviors for the rest of your life anyway. Before I go any further, please subscribe. Hit that like button down below. Let me know what you think about this video. If you need help, please reach out. Phil@ocdrecovery.com. My slots are very, very filled up, and I work all hours of the day. Sometimes I'll do calls at 5 a.m. and sometimes I'll do calls at 7 o'clock at night. I do what it takes to get people in. It's my mission in life, and it's very, very important to me because of how incorrect this fear is covered on almost anyone I've ever seen. So well-intentioned individuals, but very, very, very bad for the sensorimotor sufferer. So what is the most important piece of somatic sensorimotor recovery? I'm going to call it just sensorimotor for the remainder of this. And again, it could be anything. I've worked with hair follicle, hyperawareness, bridge of your nose, palate, teeth, eyeballs themselves, hyperawareness of your consciousness, and an existential solipsism route is this book right here. On our website at ocdrecovery.com, under the resource tab, this book, without a good understanding of this book, it is very difficult to recover from any type of emotional disturbance. The Myth of Self-Esteem is a very important book, but because sensorimotor doesn't per se have a rejection-based genesis, it can, but it's not common. It's more conditional life acceptance. This is the most important book. Next would be Claire Weeks and Paul David's. But Paul David's and Claire Weeks' books are not going to be the entire puzzle because a lot of it is leaving it there. Time and patience. GAD and panic disorder, even at the most severe levels, is not the same beast as chronic OCD. It's just not. You can leave that there, build life structure, and recover from most chronic GAD and panic disorder cycles. Even if you're having 10 panic attacks a day, OCD, the fear of it coming back is driving the entire thing. Not that it doesn't drive that in GAD and panic disorder, it does, but this is the primary factor. So I just want to give you an example, one that I go through a lot. This is what I had to break down. Just for simplicity, I'll use breathing, okay? Your goal, to become comfortable with your breathing sensations, no matter what you're doing, where you are, and regardless of how distracted you are. The goal is to not make your breathing sensation go away, and you'll never hear me use the word habituate. If you hear someone use the word, I'm going to teach you how to habituate, run for the hills, because that person has a very poor understanding of OCD. Because habituate means not notice, but you're afraid of noticing it forever. So that's why it doesn't work. It's just like two positives trying to meet each other. It just bounces off, right? So activating events, sex, exercise, school, anything where your heart rate might be elevated or you're breathing and you want to concentrate. Think about anything you want to enjoy, not just physical exertion of activity, anything you want to enjoy. Think about your sensory motor coming in there and ripping that away from you, okay? So the activating event could be endless. Here are your irrational beliefs. No matter what, I must stop noticing my breathing sensation. If I don't, it's awful and I can't stand it. If I continue to notice my breathing sensations for the remainder of my life is ruined and I can't live like this. There is a little caveat on breathing OCD because of the fear of losing control and forgetting how to breathe. If I forget how to breathe, I must be hyper aware because I will pass out and die. So I'm not going to focus on the fear of losing control and passing out and dying, but if that is something, you will have to cover this. I'm going to go through, I don't usually go through all of it, but I'm going to. The consequences of holding that irrational belief is depressed, you hate your life, life is worthless, extra hyper aware of your breathing sensations because you're so scared of it, so more to your attention, and is constantly talking about it, which is not good, okay? So what disputing? Why must I get away from my breathing sensations? Where is the evidence that life has to give me what I want? Effective new philosophy. There's no reason why I must never notice my breathing, but there are several reasons why I would prefer not to. No evidence exists that I have to get the life I want. If the universe ruled that way, it would give me what I want, and I wouldn't be hyper aware of my breathing. In what way is noticing your breathing awful if you notice it for the rest of your life? In no way. It may be damned inconvenient, but it's hardly 100% inconvenient, since it could be worse. And it could all, trust me, by the way, you're not, just reading this and doing this is not going to be enough. You're going to have to change all your avoidance behaviors, which we're going to talk about next. But take time on this. It really does take time to shift your belief system. The example I always use is, imagine if I showed up to a Spanish class tomorrow with a Spanish book, Spanish for Dummies, and I said, hey, I read this book last night. How come I can't speak fluent Spanish? They're going to look at you like you lost your marbles, right? It's the same principle with this. It really does take time, but you can get there day in, day out. Now, what are the behaviors that people do that fuel sensory motor? It is primarily avoidance, researching, and inside researching, you're looking for the person that has, I'll actually write this, same experience. Oh, I don't know, Nick. I have hair follicle OCD. You just had blinking OCD. That's a trap. So same experience. Well, I spelled that wrong. Same experiencing. So researching. Another one is constantly. So constantly talking about it. That's with family members, loved ones, religious leaders. These are the big ones. These are all the things that keep sensory motor stuck. Those things right there. With the breathing example, it could be any type of physical activity. Not many people I work with breathing OCD that won't even have sex, understandably so. Sex, running, gym, school sports, anything. Anything that hiking, Colorado's a no-go because of the elevation for many people. Wearing pulse oxes, wearing blood pressure cuffs, constantly getting your vitals checked, all that stuff have to go. Googling and researching, you already know what you need to know. I have told you everything you need to know. You will doubt me and doubt everything. You will doubt everything we say. It's how it goes. I doubted everything Rob said in the beginning, but I had to take that blind leap of faith because I knew part of me, at least I had a good idea, that I'd work with many other big names in the community, in person and virtual. Again, well-intentioned. Just don't think about it. Just leave it there. And I'm like, this isn't going to work. Like, I'm so scared of noticing my blinking, my saliva, my swallowing, my belt line, etc. So looking for the same experience, all that matters is your belief system and your views on this and constantly talking about it. This has to go. I always say that my wife thought I was recovered way before I actually was because I just stopped actually talking about this. Now, what is sensory motor recovery and what does that look like? It means you are no longer scared of noticing any sensation if and when for the remainder of your life. And if you do have a spike, you don't speak about it. You let it pass in the sense of you can't do anything in the moment, but you might have to chip away at your beliefs a little bit later. But most people have a spike and they jump back to the books on the reading list. They pick this up again and they go, ah, I did all that. These are, everything I'm saying are all the mistakes I made. If you're having a spike, especially if you've been feeling pretty good for 6 months, wait a couple weeks before maybe you go into the groups and go on the word vomit, just to show yourself for patience. But it's not never noticing your sensations again. If that's what you're basing your recovery off of, you're going to be in big trouble. And then someone asked me to cover this in one of the recent YouTube comments. Does OCD recovery in general or Sensorimotor require mantras like you've noticed you're blinking? So self-reassurance is a big problem with Sensorimotor. It's never going to work. Oh, other people notice they're blinking. You know, you've been breathing before in the past. It's okay. You've been here before. That's still engaging with the thought process and negates the process of breaking down the core fear long term. So think about all these principles I talked about. I hope you enjoy. Please let me know what you think. I cover this at least once or twice a month because there's so many people that come in with hyper-awareness-based fears. Remember, Phil at OCDrecovery.com. We are here waiting. Like I said, we are very, very passionate about coming from the lived experience and coming out the other side of Sensorimotor OCD. Me and Rob had it very, very badly. I've worked with hundreds of people with different variations of Sensorimotor. I think last year alone, in 2023, I might have had 150, 200 Sensorimotor sufferers come in, new ones, plus all the old ones I work with. And it's always the same story, right? Everyone's telling me don't ruminate. Everyone's telling me that exposure is the gold standard. Why do I feel so hopeless? It's because those things don't work. It's too simplistic. So Phil at OCDrecovery.com. Hope to hear from you soon. Enjoy the rest of your day.